There are stories people tell for attention, and then there are stories people tell because keeping them inside becomes heavier than the fear of being judged. Before I begin, let me say this clearly. If you enjoy slow-burning, real incident-style horror stories that crawl under your skin and stay there, subscribe to this channel now. Like the video, share it with someone who drives late at night, and tell me in the comments what city or country you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. Some stories feel different depending on where and when you hear them. This one changed how I drive. It changed what I pick up. And it changed what I believe waits quietly on the side of the road. I've been a night driver most of my adult life, not because I enjoy darkness, but because darkness pays better. Fewer cars, fewer questions, fewer people trying to tell you their life story when all you want is to get them where they're going and move on. That night started like every other, quiet, damp, uneventful, the kind of night where the air feels heavier than usual, like the sky is pressing down on the road. I was parked just off the coastal transit terminal outside Greymouth, a small Atlantic side city that survives on shipping, tourism, and things people don't like to talk about. The old terminal sat half-lit behind me, its concrete walls stained with decades of salt air and neglect. The newer station had been built miles away, leaving this place to rot slowly and silently. That's where the night crowd still gathered. I remember thinking about calling it early. My dashboard clock glowed faintly, the radio humming low static between stations. The road ahead disappeared into fog that rolled in from the wetlands beyond the highway. Then I saw him. He stepped out from the terminal shadows, slowly, like he wasn't in a hurry, but also like he didn't want to be seen too quickly. He wore a long, dark overcoat that looked out of place for the season, and he carried something small and wrapped in paper. Flowers. That was the first detail that stuck with me. Not the coat, not the stillness. The flowers. He stopped beside my window and leaned in just enough for me to see his face. His skin looked pale, not sickly, just tired. Deep lines cut through his cheeks and forehead, the kind carved by years of waiting rather than age. "Can you take me to Harrogate Residences?" he asked. The name made my grip tighten on the steering wheel. Harrogate wasn't officially closed, but everyone in Greymouth knew better. It was an old coastal housing complex built for Port Authority workers decades ago, abandoned after a fire, a structural collapse, and a string of incidents that never quite made the news. People didn't go there. Not anymore. "I don't drive that way," I said automatically. He didn't argue. He didn't bargain right away. He just looked past me, down the road, as if he were checking whether the place still existed. "I'll pay double," he said quietly. That should have been the moment I locked the doors and pulled away. Instead, I heard myself asking, "Anyone waiting for you there?" "Yes," he said. "She's been waiting a long time." I told myself it was just another eccentric fare, a grieving husband, a man clinging to something he lost. Greymouth was full of them. I unlocked the door. The ride started in silence, the kind that fills the car until you feel like you're breathing someone else's air. I tried small talk, weather, road construction, the usual. He didn't respond. After a few miles, I noticed the smell. Not unpleasant, just strong, like crushed stems and damp soil. The flowers sat on his lap, wrapped tightly, petals pressed flat. "They're fresh," he said suddenly, without looking at me. "She likes them that way." I nodded. though something about his tone made the back of my neck prickle. He spoke like someone repeating a promise he wasn't sure he could still keep. The city lights faded behind us as we turned onto the coastal highway. Fog thickened, swallowing the road in uneven patches. The wetland stretched out on either side, dark water broken by reeds and skeletal trees. That's when he asked me a question that made my foot ease off the accelerator. "Do places remember what happens in them?" he said. "I don't know," I replied. "Guess it depends on the place." He nodded slowly. "Some places don't forget anything." As we drove deeper into the coastal stretch, the road narrowed. Streetlights became scarce, their glow swallowed quickly by mist. I recognized the turnoff long before the sign appeared, mostly because the sign had been bent backward years ago, its lettering eaten away by rust and salt. Harrogate. I slowed instinctively. "I'll stop here," I said. "You can walk the rest." He shook his head. "No, you need to go in." "I don't go past the gate," I replied. "No one does." He turned toward me. Then, really looked at me for the first time. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for someone who looked so worn. "You already crossed the hardest part," he said. "The road remembers your tires now." I laughed nervously, hoping humor would break whatever tension had settled in my chest. "That's not how roads work." "Isn't it?" he asked. The gate loomed ahead. Iron bars twisted and warped, one side permanently ajar. Beyond it, the remains of the housing complex stretched toward the shoreline, rows of concrete shells half consumed by vines and wind. I stopped the car just before the gate. "That's as far as I go," I said firmly. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of seawater and rot. He stepped out slowly, flowers still in hand. I waited for him to turn back, to ask for change, to say something that would make this feel like a normal transaction. Instead, he said, "Don't wait for me." "I'm not," I replied. He smiled faintly. "Good." Then he walked through the gate. I watched him disappear between the buildings, his coat blending into the shadows until even the flowers were gone. I reached for the console to mark the fare, then realized he hadn't paid. "Hey!" I called out, stepping out of the car. The air felt thicker inside the gate, like breathing through damp cloth. My headlights cast long, distorted shadows across cracked pavement and broken windows. I told myself I'd just call after him, demand the fare, leave. But something caught my eye near the entrance. Flowers. The same type he carried lay scattered near the path, petals pressed into the ground, as if placed there carefully. I swallowed. "They must have fallen," I muttered. Still, I followed. The buildings rose around me like empty teeth, their windows dark and hollow. The ocean roared faintly in the distance, steady and uncaring. I called out again. No answer. Then I heard footsteps, not ahead of me, behind me. I turned sharply, heart pounding. Nothing. Just my taxi idling near the gate, headlights piercing the fog. I took a step back and froze. The gate wasn't where I remembered it. It stood farther away now, stretched down the path like the complex had grown while I wasn't looking. I rubbed my eyes, breathing hard. "Get it together," I whispered. I took another step. The sound came again. Slow, deliberate movement above me. I looked up. Balconies lined the upper floors, some partially collapsed, others hanging on by rusted rebar. And on one of them, I saw a figure standing perfectly still. Watching. I don't know how long I stood there staring upward. Seconds stretch differently when your instincts are screaming and your body refuses to move. The figure didn't wave, didn't call out, didn't step forward. It just stood there, head slightly tilted, as if studying me the way someone studies a memory they're not sure belongs to them. "Sir?" I called, my voice thin and uncertain. The silhouette vanished, not by moving away, but by becoming part of the darkness itself. That was enough. I turned and walked back toward the gate, faster now, my footsteps echoing too loudly against the concrete. The flowers crunched under my shoes, releasing that damp, earthy scent again. The gate loomed closer. Relief surged through me. Then I heard the voice. You came after me. It came from everywhere at once. Walls, air, ground. Soft, calm, unmistakably familiar. I spun around. The man stood a few feet away, flowers still in his hands, completely unbothered by how suddenly he'd appeared. "You forgot to pay," I said, forcing the words out. He looked at me with something like sadness. I always forget that part. He held the flowers out toward me. "Will you give these to her?" he asked. "I don't think I can reach her anymore." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew I didn't want the answer. "The one who stayed," he said, "when everyone else left." The ground beneath my feet felt unsteady, like the complex itself was listening. "I just drive," I said. "I don't get involved." He nodded. Neither did I. That's how it started. A memory flickered across his face, regret so deep it looked carved into him. "She waited," he continued, "every night. Same place. Same hope." Something moved behind him, between the buildings. A shape. Thin. Still. Watching. I took a step back. "I'm leaving," I said. "You already did," he replied softly. The lights of my taxi flickered at the gate. I ran. I didn't look back as I reached the car. I slammed the door shut and hit the accelerator harder than I ever had before. The gate rushed past me, the road opening up like a released breath. Only when the buildings vanished into the fog did I slow down. My hands shook violently on the wheel. My chest burned as if I'd been running for miles. I told myself it was over, that I'd escaped something I didn't understand. Then the smell returned. Crushed stems, damp soil. I glanced at the rearview mirror and realized the back seat was no longer empty. I didn't stop the car. That was my first instinct. Keep moving. Keep distance. Keep whatever had followed me from settling in. The engine hummed louder than usual, or maybe my pulse made everything sound distorted. My eyes stayed fixed on the road, refusing to drift back to the mirror again. But I didn't need to look. I could feel the weight behind me. Not physical pressure, something heavier. Presence. As if the air itself had thickened in the back seat, carrying intent instead of breath. The smell of damp soil and crushed stems lingered, stronger now, wrapped around my senses. "I don't take passengers without asking," I said, my voice unsteady. "You need to get out." No response. The highway stretched ahead, a pale ribbon cutting through wetlands and darkness. I told myself it was shock, that the night had gotten to me. People imagine things when adrenaline crashes. Then I heard movement, not footsteps, not shifting fabric. A sound like flowers being rearranged carefully. I swallowed hard. "I already took you where you wanted to go." A pause, then the voice, soft, close, no anger in it at all. "I didn't ask you to bring me back." My foot twitched on the brake before I forced it down again. I focused on the lines painted on the road, counting them, grounding myself in something real. "You weren't there when I turned around," I said. "I checked." "You weren't looking for me," he replied. "You were looking for permission to leave." That sentence landed heavier than it should have, like it wasn't meant for me alone. The road curved slightly, marsh water glinting faintly through the fog. I considered pulling over. flagging someone down, calling dispatch, doing anything that made this someone else's problem. But Greymouth doesn't have night traffic the way cities do. The road was empty. Silent. You said someone was waiting, I said. At Harrogate. Who? The flowers rustled again. She's not a who anymore, he answered. She's a place. That was when I realized something else. The flowers weren't fresh anymore. I caught their reflection in the edge of my vision. Petals darkened, edges curling inward, stems limp as if drained of whatever life they once had. I hadn't smelled decay, just earth, the kind of earth that's been turned over. I need you to leave the car, I said, louder now. You already crossed back, he replied. That's the problem. The road ahead shifted, not sharply, not violently, just subtly. The next turn came sooner than it should have. My heart hammered as I recognized it. The same bent sign, the same corroded lettering, the same wrongness in the air. Harrogate. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded slightly, tires protesting against damp asphalt. The gate stood ahead again, iron ribs open like it had been waiting. That's not possible, I whispered. I just left. You left the buildings, he said, not the ground. I shook my head, hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles burned. This isn't happening. No, he agreed calmly. It already happened. I don't remember opening the door. I remember standing outside the car, cold air biting through my jacket, my breath fogging in short, panicked bursts. The taxi idled behind me, headlights fixed on the gate like they didn't want to look away. You're not coming with me, I said. I don't have to, he replied, stepping out slowly. Up close, he looked older than before, or maybe thinner, like time had pressed in on him since we last stood here. The flowers in his hand sagged, petals nearly black now. Why me? I demanded. Why pick my car? He looked genuinely puzzled by the question. You stopped. That answer chilled me more than anything else he'd said. The complex greeted us with the same hollow silence, but this time, it felt expectant, like the space between the buildings was holding its breath. I just want to leave, I said. So did everyone else, he replied. That's why she stayed alone. We moved deeper inside. I don't remember deciding to walk, I just did. Each step felt rehearsed, as if the ground knew exactly where my feet would land. You said she waited, I said. For who? For me, he answered quietly. We reached the central courtyard. The scattered flowers I'd seen earlier were gone. In their place, the ground looked darker, soil disturbed, uneven, marked by old stains that hadn't faded with time. This used to be full, he said. Families, noise, music through open windows. What happened? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the center of the courtyard and knelt, placing the flowers gently on the ground. She worked here, he said at last. Not for the port, for the residents, cleaning, repairs, anything that kept her close to people. I noticed then that his hands trembled, not from age, but restraint, like he was holding something back. She lived alone, he continued. No family left, just promises. The air shifted. I felt it before I saw anything, a pressure change, like a storm building in slow motion. The fog thickened, curling inward from the edges of the courtyard. People noticed her waiting, he said. They thought it was strange, then uncomfortable, then inconvenient. A sound echoed from the upper floors. Not a voice, not footsteps, something heavier. I told her I'd come back, he whispered. I said it too easily. A shape formed near one of the stairwells, not solid, not fully separate from the darkness around it. Watching. "Who are you?" I asked, though my throat felt tight. He stood slowly, turning toward me. For the first time, his face looked afraid. "I'm the one who left," he said. The silhouette near the stairwell shifted, stretching unnaturally before settling into a rough outline of a woman. She didn't step forward. She didn't need to. The air around her felt heavier, charged. "She doesn't follow," he said softly. "She waits for recognition." My heart thudded painfully. Recognition of what? That she was real, he answered. That she mattered. The shape's head tilted slightly, as if listening. "She waited here," he continued. "Every night. Same courtyard. Same hope." The fog pulsed, drawing inward like a slow inhale. "I came back once," he said, years later, just to see the place." My stomach twisted. And she was still waiting. The silhouette's edges sharpened briefly, as if the memory fed it. "I spoke to her," he whispered. "I shouldn't have." "What did she say?" He closed his eyes. "She asked when I'd stay." The fog thickened around the courtyard, closing off exits I hadn't noticed narrowing before. The gate felt impossibly far away. "You brought me here so I'd see this?" I asked. "No," he said. "I brought you because I couldn't carry it alone anymore." The shape moved closer, not walking, but drawing nearer as the space between us seemed to compress. I backed away instinctively. "I don't belong here." "She doesn't agree," he replied. The flowers on the ground darkened further, petals collapsing inward. "She wants balance," he said. "Someone to remember. Someone to stay." The shape's attention shifted, away from him, toward Annie. A cold realization settled in my chest. "You already stayed once," he said, long enough for her to notice. The fog parted slightly, revealing the outline of the courtyard path, leading not to the gate, but deeper into the complex. "No," I said. "I'm not. She doesn't need you forever," he interrupted gently. "Just long enough." The shape raised its head, and for the first time I understood. This place didn't trap people. It invited them. The ground beneath my feet felt warm, wrongly so, like something beneath the surface was aware of my weight. "I won't stay," I said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. The man nodded sadly. I said that too. The shape behind me stirred, fog curling around its form like breath. "I just wanted to go home," he added. "So do I," I replied. He met my eyes one last time. "Then don't make promises." The fog surged, and the world tilted. When I came back to awareness, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Not flowers, not soil. Salt. Thick, stale, clinging to the back of my throat like the aftertaste of seawater. My eyes opened slowly, adjusting to darkness, layered with faint artificial light. I was lying on my side, cheek pressed against cold concrete. The surface beneath me felt uneven, cracked by age and neglect. I pushed myself up, every muscle protesting. The courtyard was gone. I was inside one of the buildings now. A hallway stretched ahead of me, narrow and oppressive, its walls scarred with water damage, and old paint flaking like dead skin. Doorways lined both sides, some open, some sealed shut, some warped so badly they looked fused to the frames. I didn't remember walking here. That realization brought a wave of panic I had to physically swallow down. "Hello?" My voice echoed too much, bouncing back wrong, as if the space was bending it. No answer. But I wasn't alone. I could feel it. Not the presence from before, not her exactly. This was larger, older, like the building itself was aware of me standing inside it. I checked my pockets on instinct. Phone. Still there. I tapped the screen. No signal. No bars. No emergency icon. The time display was blank. Just a dim backlight and nothing else. I slid the phone away, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Think. I remembered what the man had said. About leaving the buildings, but not the ground. About staying long enough to be noticed. I started walking. Each step echoed softly. Not loud enough to be comforting. Not quiet enough to ignore. My footsteps felt absorbed by the floor, as if the sound sank downward instead of spreading outward. As I passed the first open apartment, I glanced inside. The room was empty, but not abandoned in the way I expected. No trash, no graffiti, just absence. Like someone had carefully removed everything that made it a home, except for one thing. A chair sat in the center of the room, facing the doorway. I didn't stop walking. The next apartment had 2 chairs, side by side, both facing inward, toward a spot on the floor where the concrete looked darker, smoother, worn down by use. My chest tightened. By the third apartment, I stopped looking inside. At the far end of the hallway, a stairwell descended into shadow. The air grew colder as I approached it, the salt smell stronger now. The sound of water became noticeable. Not dripping, not flowing, just a constant low presence, like waves breaking far below ground. I hesitated at the stairs. Something in me knew this was where answers lived, and where escape became less likely. The stairs spiraled downward, longer than any residential building had the right to. My hand slid along the railing, damp and gritty beneath my fingers. Each step carried me deeper into a space that felt carved out rather than built, like the ground had been hollowed reluctantly, resisting every inch. The temperature dropped steadily. Halfway down, I realized the sound of water wasn't coming from below anymore. It was coming from the walls. I paused, pressing my palm against the concrete. It vibrated faintly, like something moving through it. I pulled my hand back quickly and continued, heart hammering. The stairwell opened into a wide underground chamber that made my breath catch. This wasn't part of any housing complex blueprint I'd ever seen. Thick support pillars rose from the floor, uneven and organic in shape, as if poured hastily or shaped by erosion rather than design. The floor wasn't level. It sloped gently toward the center, where a shallow basin held dark, still water. The smell hit me full force now. Salt and rot and something metallic underneath. "This is where it started," a voice said behind me. I spun around. The man stood at the top of the stairs, his outline barely visible against the dim light above. He looked smaller somehow, less solid. "You said she was a person," I said. "Not a place." "She was," he replied, "before this place learned her." I stared at the basin. "What is this?" He descended slowly, each step careful, deliberate. Before Harrogate, this land was a reclamation site, old coastline. Developers built over it without sealing what was underneath. "What was underneath?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the edge of the water and knelt. The surface rippled outward, though he never touched it. "A holding ground," he said, "for things people didn't want to deal with anymore." My stomach turned. "That's vague." "Because they didn't document it clearly," he replied. "Waste. Ruins. Sometimes people." I felt cold all the way through. "She worked here," he continued, "cleaning units, reporting leaks, logging maintenance issues no one wanted to fix." I pictured her now, not as the shape I'd seen, but as a woman moving through empty halls, fixing what could be fixed, waiting for things to improve. She noticed the walls sweating, he said, the floors warming, the way certain apartments felt heavier than others. What did she do? I asked. She told people. The water stirred again, a slow circular motion. They told her she was imagining it, he said. Then they told her to stop filing reports. Then they stopped renewing her contract. And she stayed, I said quietly. He nodded. She stayed because she believed if someone remained, the place couldn't fully take over. A low sound rolled through the chamber then, not loud, but deep enough to vibrate my ribs. She was wrong, he whispered. The water's surface bulged upward slightly, as if something beneath it pressed close. She didn't disappear, he said. Not right away. The memory in his voice made my throat tighten. She started losing time, he continued. Hours she couldn't account for. She'd find herself standing in rooms she didn't remember entering. I glanced at the water again. The ripples had slowed, but the surface no longer looked still. She said the ground felt warm, he added, like it was breathing. A chill crawled up my spine. She tried to leave, I said. He shook his head. She tried to convince someone else to stay. The implication hit me hard. That's what this is, I said. The place keeping itself occupied. He met my eyes. It doesn't want company. It wants continuity. The chamber darkened subtly, shadows deepening around the edges. The pillars seemed closer now, though I knew they hadn't moved. What happened to her? I asked. He swallowed. She went down here during a storm. Said the water level was rising too fast. The surface of the basin swelled again, higher this time, pressing close to the rim. She never came back up, he said. The silence afterward was absolute. And you? I asked. You came back years later. I thought if I acknowledged her, he said, voice cracking. If I stood where she stood, it would be enough. It wasn't, I said. No, he agreed. The place had already learned what it needed. The water shifted violently now, ripples crashing into each other, the surface breaking for just a moment. I saw her then, not clearly, not fully. A suggestion of a face, hair drifting like weeds in a current that shouldn't exist. I stumbled back, heart racing. She's still here, I said. She's part of it, he replied. And it's part of her. The chamber trembled faintly. This place doesn't remember people, he said. It remembers patterns, waiting, maintenance, staying behind when others leave. His gaze locked onto me. You fit the pattern. I backed away instinctively, my heel scraping against the concrete. I didn't choose this, I said. Neither did she, he replied softly. The water surged upward, spilling over the basin's edge, creeping toward us across the sloped floor. Then why bring me? I shouted. His expression was full of regret. Because it needed someone new to recognize it, he said. And I needed someone to understand why I couldn't leave. The water reached my boots, ice cold and impossibly heavy, as if it clung instead of flowed. I turned toward the stairs. They were still there, but they looked farther away now, narrower, less certain. She won't let me go, the man said behind me, but she might let you choose. The water rose higher. What happens if I stay? I asked, though part of me already knew. You become a marker, he said, a presence, someone the place can hold on to when everything else erodes. And if I leave? He didn't answer. The chamber shook again, stronger this time, dust falling from the ceiling. The water surged toward the stairs. I ran. I don't remember how many steps I climbed, only that my lungs burned and my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The sound of water behind me wasn't rushing, not chasing the way you'd expect, but advancing with patience, like it knew there was no reason to hurry. I didn't look back. Every instinct screamed not to. The stairwell seemed longer now, stretched like elastic. Each landing felt familiar and wrong at the same time, as if I had climbed these stairs before in a life I couldn't remember clearly. Keep moving. That thought repeated itself in my head, steady and desperate. The air changed as I climbed. The salt faded slightly, replaced by the stale dryness of old concrete and dust. My foot slipped once on a damp step, and my heart lurched violently, but I caught myself on the railing and kept going. I reached the top and burst into the corridor. The hallway was darker than before. Some of the ceiling lights were out completely now, leaving long stretches of shadow between weak pools of illumination. The doors on either side of me were still open, still empty, but something else had changed. The chairs were closer, not moved, not dragged, just nearer. The one-chair room now had two. The two-chair room had three, each arranged carefully, intentionally, facing inward. I slowed, breath ragged. "No," I whispered. The hallway responded with silence, so complete it felt deliberate. I walked faster, then broke into a run again as the sound returned. Not water this time, but something like pressure shifting through the building. A deep, subtle groan, as if the structure itself were adjusting to accommodate me. At the far end, I saw it. The doorway leading back into the courtyard. Pale fog drifted through it, illuminated faintly by exterior lights that flickered like they were struggling to stay awake. Freedom. Or something pretending to be. I pushed through the doorway and stumbled out into the open air. The courtyard looked larger than before, or maybe emptier. The gate was visible across the open space, iron bars catching weak light, standing exactly where it had been the first time I arrived. I ran toward it. Halfway across the courtyard, the ground shifted beneath my feet, not collapsing, not opening, but softening slightly, like soil after heavy rain. I slowed, heart pounding. The fog thickened around me, rolling in low waves that brushed against my legs, my hands. It didn't obscure the gate, though. It framed it, inviting. "You can still leave," the man's voice said behind me. I turned. He stood near the center of the courtyard, where the flowers had been placed earlier. Only now, they weren't there anymore. The ground beneath his feet looked darker than the rest, uneven, disturbed. "You said that before," I replied. "And you didn't," he said gently. "I was brought back," I snapped. He nodded. "So was I." The fog shifted again, and I felt it. That presence, no longer behind me or ahead of me, but everywhere at once. Not focused, not hostile. Aware. "She doesn't want you trapped," he said. "She wants you anchored." My throat tightened. "What's the difference?" "She wants someone to notice when things change," he replied. "When the walls sweat. When the ground warms. When the place starts asking for more." The gate stood silent, unmoving. "I didn't sign up for this," I said. "Neither did she," he replied. "Neither did I." The fog parted briefly near one of the buildings, and I saw movement. Not a form, not a shape I could define, but a suggestion of attention. Watching. Waiting. "She learned from people," the man continued. "From how they stayed too long. From how they left things unfinished." My chest felt tight, like I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. "What happens if I walk through that gate?" I asked. His expression softened with something like relief and sadness combined. "You'll go home," he said. "You'll sleep. You'll wake up. You'll tell yourself it was a bad night. And this place?" He hesitated. It will wait, he said, and it will remember you. The fog curled around my ankles again, warmer now than before. And if I stay? I asked. You'll become what I couldn't, he replied. Someone who notices before it's too late. The ground pulsed faintly beneath my feet. Not threatening, expectant. I looked at the gate, at the road beyond it, barely visible through the mist. I imagined the taxi parked somewhere out there, engine cold now, waiting for a driver who might never come back. I imagined my apartment, my routines, the way life felt manageable when nothing asked too much of me. Then I looked back at the courtyard, at the walls, the windows, the subtle way the fog traced familiar paths, like it had learned the layout by heart. I understood then. This place didn't take people. It trained them. I won't disappear, I said slowly. I won't become part of the ground. The presence shifted, like something listening more closely. I'll leave, I continued, but I won't forget. The man's eyes widened slightly. That's not enough, he said. It has to be, I replied. The fog surged briefly, brushing past me in a way that felt almost disappointed. I took a step toward the gate. The ground resisted, not grabbing, not pulling, just heavy, reluctant. Another step. The iron bars loomed closer now. Behind me, the man spoke again, his voice strained. If you leave, it will find someone else. I know, I said. I reached the gate and wrapped my hands around the cold metal. The presence pressed in, surrounding me, filling my ears with a low, wordless pressure. Stay. The idea wasn't spoken. It was felt. I can't, I said aloud. But I can warn. The pressure eased slightly. I pulled the gate open. The sound echoed across the courtyard, sharp and final. As I stepped through, I felt it. Something peeling away from me. Not pain, not relief. Connection. The fog recoiled from the threshold, stopping just short of crossing. The man stared at me from the courtyard, his expression unreadable. Goodbye, I said. He didn't reply. The gate closed behind me on its own. I drove until the sky began to lighten. The road out of Greymouth didn't twist this time. No sudden turns, no familiar signs appearing where they shouldn't. Just asphalt, stretching forward. When I finally stopped the car, my hands were shaking too badly to turn off the engine right away. I sat there, breathing, listening to the normal sounds of morning beginning somewhere beyond the fog. I went home. Life resumed. That's the lie I told myself. The truth is, I notice things now. I notice buildings that feel warmer than they should. Places where sound dulls strangely. Apartments where maintenance requests pile up without resolution. I notice people who stay late, who wait, who believe someone will come back. Sometimes when I'm driving at night, I pass developments that look unfinished in a way that has nothing to do with construction. And I don't stop. But I remember, because forgetting is what places like Harrogate count on. And waiting is how they grow. If you stayed with me until the end, then you already understand something most people never will. Some places don't need to trap you. They just need you to stay long enough to be noticed.